Imagine this. A husband walks into his mud hut and finds his pregnant wife screaming, her belly glowing like fire. Suddenly, the village chief falls to the ground, blood pouring from his chest, and an unseen spirit drags him away. The villagers cry out, but nobody dares to enter, because what was cooking in that pot was not just soup. The villagers gathered that night because they heard a strange noise coming from Amina's mud hut. At first, they thought it was the cry of a woman in pain, but as they got closer, their hearts froze. The sound was not from Amina, it was from her unborn child. Inside her womb, the baby was speaking clearly in a deep voice. The voice thundered, "This village will taste blood before I arrive." People screamed and ran in every direction, mothers pulling their children close, men covering their ears in fear. Bello, Amina's husband, fell to the ground in shock. He had never heard of a child that could talk before birth. Some villagers said it was a curse from the gods. Others whispered that it was a punishment for a hidden sin. The village chief, Chief Malam, rushed out of his compound with his staff, shouting, "Bring them to me! No unborn child should control this land." That was the night peace left the village forever, and terror entered every home. After that terrifying night, no one in the village slept in peace. Women whispered among themselves, afraid that the curse might spread to their children. Some even told their husbands they wanted to leave the village. Bello could not believe his life had turned into a nightmare. Just a few days ago, he was celebrating that his wife Amina was 7 months pregnant. Now, everyone looked at him with suspicion, as if his family had brought evil into the land. He sat by the fire outside his hut, holding his head in his hands, replaying the words the unborn baby had spoken. "This village will taste blood before I arrive." Bello thought of running away with Amina, but he knew the chief and the elders would never allow it. Amina, weak and pale, wept quietly inside the hut, clutching her belly as if trying to silence the child within. Suddenly, the voice of the baby echoed again from her womb, deep and angry. "I warned you, blood is coming." Bello jumped up, shouting in fear, as neighbors gathered outside his hut, too scared to enter but desperate to hear. The village elders gathered in the palace the next morning. Their faces were hard, their voices low, as they argued about what to do with Amina and her unborn child. Chief Malam stood with his staff in hand, his gray beard trembling as he spoke. "This is no ordinary child. If we allow this baby to be born, death will swallow our land." One elder said they should kill the child before birth, while another shouted that such blood would only bring more curses. As they argued, a loud voice suddenly filled the palace. It was not human. It was the baby's voice again, echoing from Amina's hut far away. "You cannot stop me. Your time is short." The calabash of palm wine on the chief's table shook and broke into pieces on its own. Everyone gasped. Fear ran like fire through the men's veins. Chief Malam gripped his staff tighter, his voice shaking as he commanded, "Bring Amina to the shrine. Tonight, the gods will decide her fate." The whole palace fell silent, because they all knew, if the gods rejected Amina, she and her unborn child would not see another sunrise. That night, the shrine was filled with the smell of burning herbs and the sound of drums. Torches lit the sacred ground, and the whole village gathered to watch. Amina, weak and trembling, was dragged forward by 2 strong men. Bello tried to fight them, shouting, "Leave my wife alone!" But he was beaten to the ground. The priest, old and blind, stood before the sacred fire, his body painted in chalk and ash. He raised his hands and chanted, calling the gods to speak. Suddenly, Amina's belly moved violently, as if something inside wanted to break out. The villagers screamed and stepped back. Then the baby's voice came again, louder than the drums. "You think fire can stop me? You think gods can touch me? I am older than your gods." The torches blew out by themselves, and darkness swallowed the shrine. People ran, falling over each other in terror. Only the priest stood firm, his blind eyes glowing strangely in the dark. He shouted, "This child is not human. This child is a spirit of revenge." The villagers believed what the priest said. Their fear grew so strong that some mothers even abandoned their newborn babies at the edge of the forest, terrified that the curse might spread. Bello held Amina all night, his heart torn apart. She whispered to him, "Husband, what if the child is right? What if blood really comes?" Bello shook his head, refusing to believe. But just before dawn, the prophecy began. A young hunter was found dead near the river, his body torn apart as if by wild animals, but no tracks were seen around him. The baby's voice echoed again from inside Amina. "The first blood has been taken. More will follow." By sunrise, the whole village was in chaos. Some families packed their things, ready to run. Others begged the chief to kill Amina at once. Bello, desperate, took Amina by the hand and tried to escape before the sun rose fully. But as they reached the edge of the village, they found Chief Malum and his guards waiting. His staff pointed at Bello, his eyes cold. "You cannot run. The gods have not finished with you." The village awoke the next morning to drums beating, a sound no one wanted to hear. The chief had called everyone to the square. Women carried babies on their backs. Men stood in groups, and children clung to their mothers. Bello and Amina were brought forward by guards, their faces pale, their hearts pounding. Chief Dinladi stood tall, his leopard skin robe flowing as he raised his staff for silence. "Last night, the spirits warned us through the shrine," he thundered. "The child in this woman's womb threatens our land. We must decide if we keep them here or cast them out." Gasps filled the air. Bello dropped to his knees, crying out, "Please, Chief, this is my family. How can you punish an unborn child?" But before the chief could answer, the baby's voice thundered again, echoing over the crowd. "If you cast me out, this land will burn. If you keep me, blood will flow." The entire village screamed and scattered. Even the chief staggered back, gripping his staff tightly, sweat dripping down his forehead. The prophecy had spoken, and no one knew which path would save them. That night, the elders gathered in the chief's hut. The fire in the center crackled, but their voices trembled. "If we cast them out, they may bring curses to other villages. If we keep them, the spirits may destroy us," one old man said, his eyes darting nervously. Chief Dinladi stared into the flames, his mind heavy. He remembered his own daughter who had died at childbirth. Was this a second chance for the spirits to test him? Suddenly, the flames in the fire rose higher, forming a face, the face of a weeping woman. The elders jumped to their feet in terror. The voice of the unborn child echoed through the fire. "You cannot escape my coming. Prepare, for I will choose my sacrifice." The hut shook violently, clay pots fell and smashed, and the fire roared as if alive. Chief Dinladi fell to his knees, covering his face, crying out, "Spirits, have mercy!" The elders stumbled out of the hut, shouting in fear to the villagers outside. For the first time in his reign, the chief realized his power meant nothing. By dawn, the whole village was awake, restless, and trembling with fear. Mothers held their children close. Men sharpened their machetes as if preparing for war, though no one knew who the enemy was. Bello decided he could not wait for the village to decide his fate. He whispered to Amina, "Tonight, when the moon is high, we will run." But even as he spoke, Amina doubled over in pain, clutching her belly. She screamed as the baby's voice filled the air again, louder than ever. "You cannot run from me. I will be born when blood touches the earth." The villagers outside dropped their tools and fled, some falling to their knees in prayer. Bello carried Amina inside the hut, tears streaming down his face. "Why us?" he shouted, punching the mud wall until his knuckles bled. Amina sobbed, whispering, "Bello, I don't want to die." The hut seemed to grow darker as the wind howled outside, and even the chief could be seen pacing in the distance, unable to control his people. That same night, thunder rolled across the sky, though there was no rain. The villagers gathered again in the square, too afraid to sleep. Old Mama Zainab, the midwife of the village, was brought forward. She was 70 years old, her face wrinkled, her eyes sharp with wisdom, and her gray hair tied in a scarf. She raised her hands and said, "This child is not ordinary. I have delivered hundreds of babies, but never one who speaks before birth. The spirits demand blood, and if we delay, all of us will perish." Murmurs spread through the crowd, fear gripping every heart. Bello grabbed her arm, shouting, "Lies! This is my child, my blood. No one will touch my wife or my baby." But suddenly, Amina screamed again, falling to her knees. The baby's voice came, cold and chilling. "The blood must be pure. Only the innocent will open my path." The crowd gasped as their eyes turned to Bello's younger sister, Halima, just 12 years old, standing quietly at the edge of the square. She froze as dozens of villagers looked at her in horror. Halima began to cry, backing away as the villagers shouted, "The spirits want her! The spirits want her!" Bello roared like a lion, spreading his arms wide to shield his sister. "Over my dead body! You will not touch her!" Chieftain Lottie raised his staff and shouted for silence, but the chaos drowned his voice. Men pushed forward with machetes, women screamed, and children cried. Mama Zainab's voice cut through the noise. "If we do not obey, the whole village will be cursed." Halima trembled, tears streaming down her cheeks as she clutched her mother's wrapper. Bello's heart pounded. He looked at his wife, who was gasping in pain, her belly twisting unnaturally. The baby's voice came again, booming louder than before. "The innocent must bleed before I arrive." Suddenly, Halima collapsed to the ground, her body shaking as though unseen hands were choking her. The villagers gasped and backed away in terror. Bello screamed her name, shaking her, but her lips were already turning blue. Before anyone could touch her, her body went limp, and her last breath slipped into the night air. The village went silent. Even the crickets in the bushes stopped singing. Halima's body lay motionless in the square, her young face frozen in terror. Bello knelt beside her, shaking her lifeless body, his tears soaking her wrapper. "No, no, not my sister. Please, not her," he cried, his voice breaking the night. Amina screamed from inside the hut, clutching her belly as blood began to trickle down her legs. The baby's voice came again, but this time it was softer, almost like a lullaby. "The path has been opened. Soon I will arrive." The villagers stared at Bello with fear and pity, but none dared come closer. Chieftain Lottie lowered his staff, his face pale, whispering, "The prophecy is true, one death has been taken." Mama Zainab knelt by Halima's body, closing her eyes with trembling hands. "The spirits have chosen," she said. Bello looked up, his eyes red with rage, pointing at the chief and elders. "If another life is taken, I swear, I will burn this village to the ground." The crowd gasped. For the first time, the curse had turned into war between man and spirits. The night grew heavier, as if the sky itself carried the weight of death. Amina lay on the floor of the hut, writhing in pain, her hands clawing at the ground. Her eyes rolled back, and her voice cracked as she begged, "Bello, please save me." Bello rushed in, kneeling beside her, gripping her hand. Outside, the villagers huddled together, whispering prayers, too afraid to enter. Suddenly, the baby's voice filled the hut again, this time louder, commanding, "Another must fall, or I shall tear myself out with fire and blood." Bello's heart stopped. He looked at his wife's swollen belly moving violently as though something inside was pushing to escape. Mama Zainab stepped in, holding a small calabash filled with herbs, her wrinkled face pale. "The spirits are not satisfied," she whispered. Bello roared in rage, shoving the calabash away. "No, no more death." But the ground shook beneath them, and the thatched roof cracked as a violent wind rushed inside the hut, extinguishing every lamp. In total darkness, the baby's laughter echoed, chilling every soul. The wind carried voices, whispers of hundreds of souls screaming together. Bello grabbed his machete, standing protectively over his wife. Amina sobbed, clutching her belly as blood spread beneath her. The villagers outside cried out, "Who will be the second sacrifice?" Mama Zainab's voice trembled. If no one offers, the child will kill the mother. Suddenly, Bello's eyes locked on the chief. Chieftain Lottie, dressed in his leopard robe, stood frozen in the doorway, fear plastered across his face. Bello's voice thundered. Then let the one who brought this prophecy be the sacrifice. Gasps erupted. Chieftain Lottie stumbled back, shaking his head. No, I am the protector, not the offering. But before anyone could move, Amina screamed again, and the baby's voice exploded from her womb. Yes, the blood of the chief will seal my coming. The villagers dropped to their knees in terror. Chieftain Lottie tried to run, but an invisible force slammed him against the wall, his staff snapping in two. His eyes bulged as he gasped for air. The prophecy had turned on its master. Chieftain Lottie's body convulsed as though invisible chains bound him. His mouth opened, but no words came. Blood dripped slowly from his nose as the crowd watched in horror. Suddenly, his chest split open with a sound that silenced the night. His scream echoed into the forest, then stopped abruptly. His body collapsed in a heap, lifeless. The baby's voice whispered from Amina's womb. Calm now, almost satisfied. The path is complete. Bello dropped his machete, falling to his knees, shaking violently. Amina's belly grew larger and larger, stretching far beyond normal, her wrapper tearing apart. The villagers fled in all directions, screaming into the night, leaving only Bello, Mama Zainab, and Amina in the hut. The ground split slightly beneath them, dust rising into the air. Mama Zainab clutched her head, whispering, "This child is not human. It is the spirit of vengeance." Amina gasped, her eyes glowing faintly as she looked at Bello. "Husband, if you love me, kill me now before it comes out." Bello's machete lay by his feet. His hand shook as he reached for it, his heart torn between love and horror. Bello's hand hovered over the machete, his tears dripping onto the blade. Amina reached out, clutching his wrist with the last of her strength, her eyes glowing brighter. "Please, my love, do it. Save the world." Bello screamed in agony, lifting the blade high. But before he could strike, her belly ripped open, and with a gush of blood, the child emerged. Not a baby, but a dark, twisted figure with glowing red eyes and sharp teeth. Its cry was not the cry of a child, but the roar of a beast. The villagers, who had been running, froze as the sound carried through the night. Bello swung the machete wildly, but the creature vanished into thin air, leaving only Amina's lifeless body in his arms. Bello wailed, his voice breaking the heavens. Mama Zainab whispered, "It is too late. The child of death has been born, and it walks among us." From the forest came the sound of laughter, the same chilling laugh from Amina's womb, now free, echoing through the trees. The curse had escaped, and no one knew who would fall next. Wait, if the story shook your heart, then you need to hear the next one. Subscribe now and join over thousands of people who don't want to miss these shocking African folktales. One click can keep you from missing the truth behind the next mystery. Hit that red button, and let's reach 100,000 strong together.